Welcome back to another episode of Golden Gray Podcast. It's spooky season and we're talking about compositing. Welcome back, everybody. I'm not spending the whole podcast wearing that.
Yeah, no, I mean, the masks are fun, but it hurts my nose.
Yeah. Well, so this episode we're going to talk about compositing.
Oh, yeah, let's do it.
And this is probably one of my favorite things in photography.
Agreed.
It adds a little spice to your photos.
Yeah.
Spicy boy.
Yeah. If you ever deal with flat, lame photos, compositing may be for you.
Yeah.
So what is compositing?
It's basically making a photo, well, integrating two photos is the easiest way to say it. But the way that I would say I use it most is overlays.
Yes.
So get a nice, like, stars or twinkles. I did it for a glitter shoot. And then you put it on screen, which is an option in Photoshop, and it removes all the black. So only thing left is the sparkles.
Yeah, so screen is one of those, like, you can choose the way that a layer in Photoshop or any other photo editing program or video, you can choose the way that it's interpreting the colors of the layer, and is that helping? You can choose the way that it's interpolating the color and the alpha channels, and screen is one of those modes. So if you see those, like, overlay PNGs that you find online where there's a black background, screen will basically treat the black channel. It's more complicated than that, but it'll treat the black channel as an alpha layer, and then you can just drop in cool stuff. Yep. Like like you were saying, sparkles or borders or all sorts of different graphics. And a lot of the time that's useful for if you have a photo that is going for a specific vibe, but you didn't quite get that in the moment, you can add that back in.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Right now it's fall, and we have both been taking a lot of fall photos.
Love fall photos.
And one of the problems is you always want those leaves falling.
Oh, absolutely.
But a lot of the times the leaves aren't falling, or it looks really bad, or you want more or whatever. So
you also want the leaves falling without blocking your shot.
Yeah, exactly. So
you need good leaves.
So a lot of the times, if you find a very good photo, an overlay for leaves, you can drag that on top of your photo, put that on screen mode, and then it looks like there's leaves falling. Now you have to be careful, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, because there's a lot of ways that you can do terrible compositing. So,
yeah,
anyways.
Absolutely. We don't want you to be scared of compositing. I know you see a lot, if you watch, like, YouTube, a lot of people do some, like, heavy compositing. Like, there will be a picture of a person in, like, a dystopian future. They, like, change the glow around the person. Like, you can go very in depth.
All these lighting effects. They change. There's buildings that they add
flares,
in.
Crazy
flares.
stuff.
They'll change the sky out. And you can do insane stuff with compositing, which is really cool. And I encourage everybody to give it a try.
But you have to start somewhere, and I think a simple overlay is the best way to do it. So
and that's something that every photographer really should have in their back pocket.
Absolutely.
I think.
So just to run you through the basics, if you do have Photoshop or pretty much any editing program, say you have a photo, you want leaves falling, you drop the regular photo into Photoshop, you put the leaves in, and then you put switch the layer of the leaves to screen. That will get rid of all the black. Now you can take it a step further and add a mask to that layer, and with your brush tool, squiggle out some of those leaves, the ones that you don't want.
Yeah.
But we'll go way more into masking in a later episode. Masking is a whole new entity.
Yeah, for sure.
Overlays with screens, adjust it, play with that, and see how you like it. It's a good starting point.
That's a great starting point. Yeah, there are a lot of different ways that you can do composites, and a lot of it is basically just cutting out the parts of one image that you want and doing basically a collage. It's just, digital collages, which is super cool. So also, if you do have an element that you need to cut out with the lasso tool or the marquee or the rectangle marquee tool, you can do that as well.
Or the fan favorite, the pen tool.
The pen tool, I never use the pen tool.
I use the pen tool constantly.
I don't use the pen tool as much. I use the polygon select tool a little bit, but
I don't think I've ever used that.
You never use the polygon select tool? Sometimes it's good if you have a lot of straight edges and stuff like that, and you want to really roughly chop something out.
Exclusively pen tool.
Really?
For me.
Yeah, and then the other way, speaking of the pen tool creates a polygon, and you can use polygons. You can create one, and then with an image that's over it, if you hit like Alt and then tap on the image that's below the layer that's below your image, you can apply it to that. There's another way to make a mask, and again, we'll get into masks later. But there's all these different ways that you can use to get two different images to go together, and I really encourage you to
Play around with it.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
I do have a YouTuber other than us. I would love for you guys to like watch us, but if you do want to watch another YouTuber, Pix Imperfect. He does a lot of Photoshop tutorials, how to do composites, getting those colors just right. If you want to like start watching videos, watch him. Yeah. He's really good.
There are a lot of great composite YouTube videos. Also, did you see that one that Peter McKinnon video of like the girl in the desert, the photo?
No.
A really long time ago, Peter McKinnon. We talk
about him a lot.
Yeah, we do talk about him a lot. A really long time ago, Peter McKinnon did a video where he composited a photo of a girl he took, or a friend of his took in the desert, and he photoshopped a mountain into the back of it, and it looked appalling because he tripped over everything, and he made a follow-up video where he basically was like, yeah, this is a terrible job. I did a terrible job at the time. I didn't know what I was doing. And then he paid a whole bunch of people on Fiverr from
did see this.
$500 to $500 or whatever.
And like some people like screwed up the shadows and everything.
And so that's where I'm going with it, is like there are a lot of mistakes you can make with it, and like and these people who are getting paid like $300 on Fiverr were making these terrible mistakes, and they're really easy. So I want to really quickly run down some of the things that you need to know that'll instantly boost your compositing game, and it's not that hard. You just need to remember to look out for them. Number one is lighting.
Lighting, yeah.
For real. If you're trying to integrate two photos together, make sure the sun is coming from the same direction. Because if you are sitting here and the sun's hitting your right side of your face and the moon's behind you and it's rotated a weird way, unless you want that weird creepy look, it's gonna look off, and your brain might not even know why, but you're gonna notice, and their viewers are gonna notice. So always make sure your lighting is matching for sure.
Yeah, and to that point, tip number 2, I would say shadows.
Yes.
Make sure if they're standing in front of a lake, they have a shadow, and they're not a witch. Not witch. What's it? Is it a ghost?
Vampires? Maybe?
Vampire.
Maybe vampires don't have shadows.
People do appear in reflections, and in actual photography, it happens. So they're not vampires.
Yeah, like those subtle things. When you combine two photos together, you should always consider, if this were there in real life, how would it be affected by the environment? You need to think about your lighting. You need to think about the materials that are involved. And that's why it can get really complicated to make a good composite with these huge, crazy things. But, if you're just like, doing the leaves we were talking about earlier, that's a lot easier.
Yeah,
but
you want to start somewhere, though.
Tip number 3 is color tone. Make sure that your colors are matching, because
this is the hardest part, by the way.
This is going to take trial and error, and you're going to have to eyeball it, and you don't always get it 100% right. But if I have a picture that was taken at a very warm white balance, but my picture is at a very cool white balance, try to put them together, it's going to look really strange, and your brain's going to know that something is up. So you always have to remember to check and double check, make sure your color tone is right, like your tone and your tint and stuff, so that your images are matching, so they mix together right. I see those are the 3 things I think I see beginners mess up.
I would say I have a 4th one.
Oh, you have a 4th one.
So this really depends on how deep you want to get into it, but noise matching. So if you are editing a photo and you have a beautiful background that you found online or whatever, and you want to throw in your photo, but that photo was taken in 200,000 megapixels, and it looks perfect. There's no noise, there's no anything, and then you have a picture of you that has noise from using too much ISO. They have in Photoshop and Affinity, they have options to add noise to photos. Yeah. So just try to make sure, if you zoom really, you can't see it unless you zoom really in, but it really does change the entire picture. Yeah,
always just zoom way on in, make sure that those 2 elements look good together on a macro scale and a micro scale. Up close they look good and they look similar, and take a step back, all together compositionally they look good. And you can do all sorts of things, think about the depth of field in each one. It looks really strange and I see this a lot, where people will have a picture that's this really beautiful picture and they Photoshop themselves into it, and it's like a landscape, but the depth of field in the landscape that they're Photoshopping themselves into is completely different than the depth of field that's in your photo. So a lot of the times you'll end up with things in the foreground that should not be in focus at all.
Using Gaussian blur.
Yeah, you gotta mask that out. You gotta add some lens blur or some Gaussian blur or something like that. Even if it's not incredibly convincing, you need to do something about that, or just not use those photos at all. I see pictures where people do that with the sky, and the moon is really just tack sharp, perfectly in focus, as if it was the subject of the picture, but the things in the foreground and the landscape are all blurred out and beautiful, and it looks really weird because there's physically no way that'll ever happen. So you need to make sure you check that, and also focal length as well. Make sure your zoom is kind of matching. If you ever
I think this is a little in depth for what we're doing.
Yeah, but there's just all these different things you think about.
There's a checklist you definitely got to go through, but for at least beginners, there's a right way and a wrong way to do composites, and there's thousands of videos that will teach you the right and the worst ways. From my experience, compositing, I have spent hours on a single photo.
Yeah.
I don't know about you.
I have also spent incredible amounts of time on one photo. And it's not always worth it.
It's sometime it is, sometime it isn't. I remember one of the first pictures that I spent more than 25 minutes on was a car.
And I remember this car. I remember this.
I'm sorry to my boss. I spent 3.5 hours. I mean, I did it for work. I wanted it to look pretty and beautiful and perfect.
It was a very good job. It looked incredible.
So it was a picture of a Challenger, and the problem was I redid the entire background from scratch using the clone stamp. So there was no fields. There was lines in the ground. I got rid of all of it.
Yeah, I mean, I believe this car was taken in front of a building or something like that, and it looked very ugly. You basically composited in an entire new background of fields.
Oh, that wasn't a new background. That was straight up the clone tool for the entire thing.
Yeah, and it looked great, though. Maybe we could actually drop a link to that picture at some point.
Yeah.
Because it looked really good. And I remember actually... And this was one of those things where you were really thinking ahead, because I remember you went around the edge of the car to match the rim lighting to the sky that you had just drawn in. You dropped in a sunset sky, but this was taken midday, and you added a pink tint to the edge of the car to make it look like it, and it was very convincing. It looked great.
I'm so upset about how long I spent on that photo.
But I think that was a real good case of thinking about all of the right things and actually putting in the work, but it ended up with a beautiful composite, and if you didn't put in that time, it wouldn't have looked as good.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The composites, the more time you put in, the better. There's another YouTuber that does almost strictly composites. Kids send him their drawings of monsters, and then he makes them real.
That's cool.
I've never seen someone use textures to their fullest like him. I forgot his name. He's purple and yellow.
Purple and yellow?
Yeah, he's insane, dude. The crap he makes with composites, you would think it was straight out of VFX, studio. It's insane. But just composites in general, it's a fun way to get started with Photoshop. Yeah. I think that's where I started. It helps with logo design. Just learning how to alt-click things, add textures to stuff. Compositing is a good foothold for getting your foot in the door for a lot of things.
Yeah.
Did you find him by any chance?
No, I didn't. I don't think. Is this him? No, I don't think that's him.
No,
that's cool.
No, that's not him.
Yeah.
All right. So let's kind of get into what is your favorite composite that I've ever made? That you've ever made.
So I'm not the kind of person that does those crazy composites. I've tried a couple of times, and it's just not my thing. If you know me, I like really realistic and natural photos. I really like natural beauty. But I think one of my favorite composites. So I go camping a lot with my family. And there was a moment a little while ago, and this was one of the fall photos I was talking about. We went on a hike with my family, and my brother walked ahead, and he was walking down.
Is this the dog picture?
Yeah. Okay. He was walking his dog down the country lane, and it was just surrounded by yellow leaves. It was beautiful, absolutely surrounded in a tunnel. It's just a classic photo, at a telephoto picture, but it just fell a little bit short. There were no real, there was not a lot of indication of depth. So I actually very subtly composited in leaves falling around the perimeter.
Yeah.
And some gravel texture in the path to kind of define it.
I didn't know you did that.
I'll show you that later. But yeah, I just very subtle stuff, and that's why I think it's so powerful because I really wanted that strong path, but you just can't see it. So I made it, and it's really subtle because it's, you know, the opacity is dropped. You can see the texture from beneath coming through. But you know, it's really subtle, but yeah, it helps a lot. So I think that's one of my favorite ones I think I've ever done. What about you?
My favorite of all time has to be the hands photo.
The hands photo? Yeah, man.
I got a lot of compliments. I did a Halloween photo shoot with my girlfriend, and the most complimented one was a levitation. I took 2 images. I took a clear image of the trail, that she was in the middle of a trail, and then another image of her on a stool in the same trail. And all I did was I kind of composited the photos together, got rid of the stool, and the best part about that was because I used one focal length for one picture and one for the other, I could get all that detail of what was under her back. So I had her at 4.0, and she looked really good. The background was a little blurry, but I could still get those details of the stuff I missed because I took that other photo without her.
Yeah.
But my favorite that I ever made was in the same shoot, and it was just her hands. We did 10 different photos. They're all composited together, and it was her hands on a tree. And it looked like there were a bunch of spooky hands wrapped around a tree. And then the last picture is her grabbing me with one hand. So we'll show it on our Facebook page, but it is literally one of my favorite photos I've ever taken.
It's really, really nice. Yeah, I like it a lot.
So, do you have any more on compositing? You want to get into the questions?
I want to say one quick thing.
Go for it.
There is a kind of compositing you can do that does not involve Photoshop or any photo editing, and this is panoramic shots. You might have seen panos before. I just want to really quickly mention this. If you turn your camera on to panoramic mode, and you start to take your panorama, and then you do something drastically change the angle, do a huge movement, and save that photo, you'll end up with a really skewed version of reality. You can make it look like things are at a right angle. You can make it look like the world is bending around you, and that is kind of gets a really interesting composite look without ever touching a photo editing program.
Yeah.
So if you're really scared of things, but you want to take really interesting photos, I encourage you to mess with things like that and long exposures, and that can give you a lot of inspirations for what you can do with composites and give you a lot of interesting textures and environments that you can work into composites.
Yeah.
So mess around with your panorama mode on your camera or on your phone, and also mess around with long exposures to get crazy looking environments.
Yeah.
And you can incorporate a lot of those into your composites, which are really cool.
Yeah, technically panoramas themselves are composites.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, I wasn't even talking about that.
It's stitching photos together. That's what it is.
A panorama just takes a whole bunch of photos, and your phone just lines them up for you with AI, and it just makes it all look like one photo, but it's actually hundreds of, maybe not hundreds, but it's tens of
10 photos.
I mean, sometimes it takes up to 100 photos. Yeah. It can take a lot. And it stitches them all together, and that's how you end up with a panorama. And that's how you can make your own custom panorama if you are using an actual DSLR too. But we'll get into that another day maybe.
I would never have the patience to make my own panorama.
It is difficult. It is not easy. It takes a lot of effort.
I think Lightroom has an ability to do it now.
It stitches it together?
Yeah, something like that.
I'll have to explore that. That's cool.
All right. So,
yeah. What do you want to do now? Do you want to do some questions?
Let's do some questions.
All right, let's go for it.
All right. So one warm guy says, "How can I improve my composition skills?"
Okay. So is this this is kind of composition just in general?
He says, "I already incorporated the rule of thirds and the Fibonacci's golden rule. I'm just not satisfied with my photos."
I think he's talking a little bit more about composition in when it comes to actual the framing and stuff, but also that this is a great way to express that, which is if you are this is about composition, not composites. But compositing might be a way to actually improve your photos.
Yeah.
So since we're on that topic, like I said earlier, if you feel like you're lacking detail, you can try making your photo into a composite, and then you can end up with a much better result because of it. Now, composition-wise, just more broadly, if you're already incorporating rules of thirds, the golden spiral, try other. We've talked about it before, I think, but there's other ways that you can align your photos. There's diagonals you can look for. There's more extreme versions. You can try fourths or fifth even.
Use the foreground to your advantage.
Yes, we talked about that, I think, too. Yeah, use the foreground, get something blurry or something to frame it well. But when it comes to framing, think about the way your subject is in the environment. You know, you can make sure your subject is aligned with the rule of thirds or whatever, but if they're just kind of standing there, it's not going to look that great.
Yeah.
Use the environment to your advantage. Get a weird angle. Don't take it straight on. Take it at an angle. Get down low. Get up high. Get a little bit of that sort of twist. Do different focal lengths. When we talked about it the other week, leading lines can help point towards the subject or point through the photo to lead your eye from one side to the other.
Absolutely.
So the best way, I think, to improve your composition is to take the photo the way you normally would, and then just walk around and just leave your subject where they are, no matter what they are, if it's a person or an object or whatever, and just take all sorts of up, down, left, right, go everywhere, take a whole bunch of photos, and then kind of look for the ones that you like, and I think you'll find that some of the ones that you like have very interesting properties and are from places that you wouldn't expect, and they use the environment to their advantage. There's 100 ways you can take a photo of a room, and there's going to be a few that really stand out. So
yeah, absolutely.
That's the best way to find it.
I would also, depending on what your location is, I don't know where you are, but utilize that negative space. If you have your subject on the thirds, make sure there's something interesting on the other third.
Yeah.
Don't make it all about your subject unless that's your plan, but you can make it about your subject and the environment at the same time.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you can. Feel free to showcase your subject in the environment, especially if you're trying to tell a story. If it's like a portrait for a portfolio or whatever, then yeah, of course you don't want that. But yeah, show the environment. If they're in a pretty cool place, get some of that environment in there.
Let it be known.
Let it be known, yeah.
Okay, so next question by Erie, Ontario.
Erie as in the lake of Erie, Lake Erie.
E-E-R-I-E.
Erie Lake.
Erie.
Yep. Erie, Ontario.
Is the Canon EOS M an okay starter camera to learn on?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
I have some specs here. So it retailed for $6. You could probably get it for $300 now. $4.
If you can get an EOS used. Well, they're in such high demand now, but yeah, you can get it for about $400 used.
Well, the biggest reason they're in such high demand is there's no video cap.
Yeah, well, there isn't a video cap.
And clean HDMI out.
Yeah. Okay. So
for a camera under $400, a clean HDMI is insane.
Okay. Here's the thing. You can't. That's not default. It is a camera, not a camcorder. So there is a video cap, and there's no clean HDMI out. But the EOS M is one of the best low-end cameras that you can get Magic Lantern on. Magic Lantern is a Canon software, not official. It is a third-party software that you can put on an SD card and load onto the camera, and it unlocks so many features. Especially the EOS line is handicapped on purpose by Canon. They lock out a lot of features. Most of the Rebel series.
They want you to buy the Rs.
Yeah, they want. Well, this was before the R. Way before the R was even a glimmer in their
now
eye.
they want you to buy the Rs.
Well, yeah,
that's why they haven't given them software updates.
But there's a lot of different. Just knocked over my mug.
Good thing you finished your coffee.
Well, this has been a problem for 10 years. Back when the T2i came out, it is capable of much more than they allow it to be, but they want you to spend more money on expensive cameras, so they lock away those features. But Magic Lantern is a free software, and it actually doesn't install onto your camera. It's installed onto your SD card, so it's relatively low risk. I've never heard of anybody having any problems with it. But a lot of the older Canons and mid-range, or now like all the 5D, I think even has Magic Lantern, and it unlocks tons of features, including removing the video recording cap and giving you lots of lighting features, like clean HDMI out, expanding, like for some cameras it even allows you. So I think for the EOS M, it actually allows you to record in 4K RAW, 8 clean feed out. So the EOS M is an incredible bang for your buck camera, and it's awesome. But on that same page, any camera really that can get Magic Lantern, the T2i, I still have mine. It's okay. Like, it's okay. Honestly, it's okay. It's fine.
It works.
It works.
It turns on.
It works, and you can get a lot out of it, and you can get a good bang for your buck with it because it's so cheap now. You can get a used EOS, T2i for like $200 with a kit lens on eBay. But if you put Magic Lantern on there, it instantly doubles the value of it.
Yeah, it's a much better camera.
Immediately get so much more out of it. So honestly, not just the EOS M, but even the cheaper cameras like the old T2i, T3i sort of ones, you can get a lot out of those. Like, the 250 M is what, the 250D?
250D.
Yeah, I mean, that's still a pretty good.
The one I have.
Still a pretty. Yeah, you still have that as well. We
it's the SL3, technically.
Yeah, I guess the 250D
American
is
version.
the European version.
Yeah.
But I mean, like all of those like lower range cameras. Unfortunately, I'm not aware of a Magic Lantern equivalent on the cheaper Sony cameras. Although, thankfully, I think Sony's a little less known for locking off their features. Canon can be kind of like a butt like that sometimes. And there's a couple cheap, really good Fujifilm cameras as well. But yeah, the EOS M is an incredible sweet spot. So, anyways.
Any camera that is under $500 and you can install Magic Lantern is generally and has interchangeable lenses.
Yeah,
I would like to also mention that.
Yeah,
is a decent camera.
Yeah.
All right. So, and our final question of the day: should I shoot in RAW even if I don't have a quality monitor to edit them on?
Joe, you know this about me.
I like RAW. You don't.
Friends of the podcast. I used to film in 6K RAW at a medium to high bit rate. And I used to edit everything in that without proxies, which I could do because my computer is quite powerful. I now film...
I think they're talking about photos, though.
Oh, are we talking about photos?
Because, listen, if it says, should I shoot in RAW even if I don't have a high-quality monitor to edit on? My thought is, if you have a camera that can shoot RAW, you have the money for a high-quality monitor.
That's not true. Because the T2i can shoot RAW with Magic Lantern.
Well...
actually, the T2i can shoot RAW. Can shoot CR2 RAW without that. So even some cheap cameras can shoot in RAW. So if we're talking about photography, let me finish my thought. Don't shoot video in RAW unless you really, really, really need it. It's so not worth it. Anyways, when it comes to cameras, if you have the storage space, yes, I think so. Yep. I think that unless you are trying to get a tight turnaround on your photos, if you have the storage space on your SD card, I would shoot in RAW. What do you think?
I almost exclusively shoot in RAW because I have been doing this for quite some time now, and I have enough presets to where pretty much any situation I could throw a preset on and like just adjust it quick enough to where if I were shooting a JPEG, I would be happier if it was RAW with a preset than a JPEG standard.
Yeah. With a RAW photo, you're always going to, no matter what it is, if it's a CR3, if it's a DNG, if it's a Sony RAW, like, you're always going to get way more out of it. You can infinitely adjust your white balance and your tint, and you can get so much more out of your lighting. It's just worth it. It's totally worth it if you are going to edit your photos at all. Now, I will say, I've done a couple of things where, if you're shooting for an event or whatever, and they need those photos that night, and they need, like, hundreds of photos the day of, I shoot in JPEG, and it's totally fine. And it's usually as long as your preset that you're using on your camera body is good, you're fine. Yeah. But everything else I shoot in RAW. I did a wedding the other day. I shot 15,000 photos in RAW.
15,000?
15,000 photos.
Jesus Christ.
I shot 15,000 photos.
That's quite a few photos.
I filled up several SD cards. But I sorted through a lot of them really quick. Now I'm down to like 5,000, which is much more reasonable.
I'm proud of you.
Yeah, I mean...
That's actually a lot more work than you'd think.
Yeah, it takes forever, but I even though there's so many photos to get through, it's still that worth it to shoot in RAW because, I mean, I didn't always nail the lighting right. But now I have the option to go back and do that. So I would say when it comes to your monitor resolution, it doesn't really matter, You can get around that. So I think it's worth it.
All right, you ready?
Yeah, let's do Would You Rather.
Would you rather?
This one's short. I can see that it's short. I don't know what it is, but it's very short, so I have no idea what we're getting into.
If you could only take pictures in one season, would you rather the winter or fall? Have that snowfall or those leaves fall? What would you rather do? Video, photo, all of it, you get 3 months.
The two most beautiful seasons, in my opinion, snow and fall.
Yep.
Ah, gosh. Okay. Me personally, snow. You know this about me, Joe. I love the snow.
Yeah.
I love being in the snow. I love snowboarding.
Cold person.
No, I love being cold. I like bundling up. I love it.
Can't stand it.
I would take photos in the snow. I love snowfall. It makes me so happy, so nostalgic. But okay.
My answer.
Oh, spooky season. Yeah.
Spooky season.
Okay. He just put on a mask, viewers or listeners. It's spooky season, so I think that's your answer. Well, here's the thing: clients, fall. Because all of the clients want fall photos. That's why the weddings are in fall.
Oh, whoa. What? Holiday photos.
Yeah, but that's not snow.
That's not snow, but I'm talking seasons.
But I've never done. If we're talking seasons, I'm talking about outside. And I've never had a client specifically request a snow photo shoot. I've done some, but it was never pitched to me as I would like to take photos in the snow. Now, I get a lot of requests and a lot of work around the time of fall because of the leaves, because of the perfect weather, that like slightly chilly weather. That's just when people really like taking some people really like taking photos. So I think for the sake of my career, it would have to be fall. Yeah, because there's more work in fall.
I can't say that I've taken a lot of snowy photos. I really want to.
Sounds like we have a mission this winter.
Yeah, we definitely need to, when we go snowboarding, have a snowboarding photo shoot.
For sure. I love taking snow photos. It's super good. Snow is my favorite season.
And that is the easiest to composite, is little snowflakes.
Yeah, that's you can drop those right on.
Takes 2 seconds. Yeah. But, all right, I think that ends the night. And I got to put my mask on. I know I just took it off. But I'd like to thank you guys for joining us for our spookiest episode yet. That wasn't actually kind of that spooky. But thank you guys for listening, and we'll catch you next week.
All right. See you guys.